I'm beginning a sermon series on the idea of desperate housewives. Have you, any of you ever seen that show, Desperate Housewives? You're not going to hold up your hand. Whether you have or not, this series will be something that everyone will enjoy, because we're going to be taking a look for season 1 at some of the ladies in the Old Testament and the things that they had to go through in their desperation in life. And we'll find out that their desperation really is our desperations as well. And so I hope that through this we'll be able to find ways that we can grow. We're going to start today with, of course, the beginning, Eve. It took me a long time to find a picture that I could put up there of Eve. But I thought that was a good one. Eve was the first wife. So I thought it was appropriate that we begin with her as desperate housewives. She lived in a perfect paradise. She had all she needed. But she was desperate for one piece of fruit that God said that she could not have. That's why we see that she was desperate, because she wanted what she didn't have. Does that sound familiar to anybody in here? Anybody in here ever wanted something that you didn't have? Then you can understand where Eve was. That she desperately wanted that fruit. Sometimes we get into the things, looking into the world, and we begin to look at and focus on things like jobs and cars and money and new spouses and old spouses, all sorts of things that take our attention away from God and what God has given us. Back in 1978, I was new in the faith, and I had heard a teaching on if you just name whatever it is that you want, God will give it to you. We call that the name it and claim it teaching. So I decided that sounded good to me, and I named a Cadillac. Lord, I want a Cadillac. They're right there in my driveway, and I pictured the Cadillac. And God spoke to me in that time. When God speaks to me, it's not in a physical way, it's in a spiritual way, but it was just as real as if I had heard the voice. And he said to me, Alan, why do you want it? And then he opened up my heart, and I began to see the selfishness that truly was motivating that request. And I became so embarrassed in front of God that I really, truly wanted to crawl into a hole somewhere and pull it in behind me so that I could be away from the presence of God. But God spoke to me that day, right after that, and he said, Alan, I'm going to give you what you have asked. And that was it. Never heard from him again, at least not about Cadillacs and things of that nature. And so life went on. I no longer desired it like Eve desired the fruit in the Cadillac. But I do know that I had a problem, the same problem that Eve had, and that is that I was lusting after things. If you heard the scripture out of James, it said that if you are in love with the world, then you are at enmity with God. You cannot love both God and the world. And when we talk about lust, we're talking about a human condition that we all have. It goes beyond just wanting. It goes beyond desiring. Lust is a powerful emotion that focuses us on the object that we are lusting after, and nothing else. We will do whatever it takes to acquire the object. That's lust. That's powerful. That controls our life. And when our life is controlled by lust, it is not controlled by God. So to overcome lust, let me suggest this. And maybe if Eve had done it, we would have turned out a little bit differently. Instead of focusing on the object of our lust, be thankful for the things that you already have. Begin to focus on the other things. The things that God has said, yes, you may have these. Please enjoy these things because they are my blessing to you. If Eve hadn't done that, we might have had a different outtake. Now let me go back to my Cadillac for just a minute. In 1988, I lived in Corpus Christi, and through a series of circumstances, I found myself working for New York Life Insurance Company. And a couple in the church that I had been serving in earlier called me up and said, Alan, please come over. We want to talk to you. And so I did. And they said, Alan, that car that you are driving is horrible. You will never sell anything driving a car like that. We want to give you our car. It was a Cadillac. It was a 1978 Cadillac. The very year that God said he would give it to me. He just let them take care of it for 10 years. That's all it is. But isn't that the way God works? With a smile on his face. Sure, I'll be glad to do that. The second problem that Eve had in all of this was that she listened to the wrong advice. Have you ever done that? Listened to the wrong advice? Our human nature is to find people that will tell us what we want to hear. We try to steer away from those people that are going to tell us the truth because we don't want to hear the truth. We want to hear whatever it's going to take so that we can do what it is that we want to do. You know, the serpent did not convince her of anything. If you go back and read that story again, you'll see that he just asked questions. He did make the comment that she wouldn't die. But he really didn't convince her to eat the fruit. She was already convinced. All he did was give her permission to do that. Who are the people that you go to when you want something that you know you probably shouldn't have? We all have those people in our lives. It might be a friend. It might be a cohort from college or other days. It might be somebody in our business or our job. When we go to those people just to get permission to do what we want and ignore what it is that God is telling us, there's a word for that. And that word is folly. The Old Testament talks about it a lot in Proverbs. Foolish is another word for it. Foolish and folly in the American dictionary is defined this way. It is a costly undertaking, having an absurd or ruinous outcome. Let me read that to you again. Think about Eve. It is a costly undertaking with an absurd or ruinous outcome. Certainly Eve's life was ruined after she took the advice and foolishly went her own way. She almost lost everything she had because of that one decision that she made. Her life certainly changed forever, as did our lives today. We still have those kind of temptations in our life. The temptations to go a little bit faster than we should because we're a little bit in a hurry. The temptation to take something from the job simply because we want it or we think we need it and the company really doesn't need it that much. Or maybe we received more money in change in the store and we decide we're going to keep it because the store doesn't need it as much as we do. And we give all sorts of foolish reasons why we do the wrong things. But God says that is not the way to live. If we are going to overcome foolishness in our life, then we have got to do it with wise counsel. That is what helps us overcome the things in our life that will truly destroy us. Now, I know that every one of you knows somebody in your life you could turn to that would tell you what you wanted to hear. But I also think that there are probably people in every one of our lives that we can think of right now that will tell us the truth. to say, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm concerned that if you do that, this is where you'll end up. You see, when we start lusting after things, we don't want to hear them. But when we choose instead to hear wise counsel, it can overcome the foolishness that we're about to get ourselves into. So Eve then had a problem in that she desired desperately something she didn't have, and it turned into lust, which then triggered all sorts of things in her life. And finally, she blamed somebody else for her decisions. You ever done that?